So we've got legacy bans now. No more Name Sticker Goblin. Let's go see what the leagues feel like. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video. And recently when I did my little post Name Sticker Goblin ban video, one of the things that I speculated is that white decks might see an uptick in play. Previously, white decks often did not have great ways of interacting with Name Sticker Goblin when it came down, because oftentimes the white decks would be tapping out for cards like Stoneforge Mystic or activating Stoneforge for Kaldra, so it was just hard to hold up Swords to Plowshares. So unless you were playing Solitude in your deck, you often didn't have great ways of interacting with that card. So now that we can remove these Solitudes from our deck and not be 2-for-1ing ourselves in the early game, how are these white decks going to feel? As it would so happen, I had a Stoneblade deck in my queue, so this seemed like the perfect thing to kick off post-ban content with. Now, Plum Wizard sent me a somewhat spicy blue-white, Stoneblade, blue-white, Delverblade deck list, as you might call it. So most of the cards that are here are unsurprising until you get to about this column, and that's where the spice comes in. Cryptic Coat is, I think, from Murders at Karlov Manor, and this is a card that has impressed me on the other side of the battlefield. It is a very strange equipment in that it does not have a traditional equip cost. Normally when you see an equipment, there is like equip 2 or something like that that lets you move the equipment around. But with Cryptic Coat specifically, when it enters the battlefield, you cloak the top card of your library, meaning that you put it face down as a 2/2 with Ward 2. So essentially for 3 mana, you get a 3/2 Ward 2 creature. And if Cryptic Coat leaves play, you still have that 2/2. So the idea is that for 4 mana, you can just Stoneforge bounce, Stoneforge bounce, Stoneforge bounce repeatedly to continue growing an army. And this can be a really cool tool versus control decks. And even if you don't have the Stoneforge, you can just 2 mana bounce end of turn, use your turn to play it, and that is good value. The Sword of Once and Future is, I think, on the wrong side of the spice spectrum. Protection from black and blue seems to me like the relevant part here. I'm not really sold on the rest of this. When a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you Surveil 2. Then you may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. And while it's like cool to brainstorm or ponder an additional time or Swords to Plowshares an additional time, I'm not sure if this is really worth the slots. I'm going to assume that this is being played for the protection colors because blue-black decks are just absolutely all over the place. And I'll hope to be pleasantly surprised by this one. Not pleasantly surprised, but unpleasantly surprisingly. Words. I've seen this card on the other side of the table a couple of times from Stoneblade decks, and while it doesn't really look that impressive, I think it's much better than it looks. So when Assimilation Aegis enters the battlefield, you exile up to 1 target creature until it leaves the battlefield. And if you equip this to something, that creature becomes a copy of whatever Assimilation Aegis exiled. So this is an overcosted removal spell by legacy standards, but it's an overcosted removal spell that is tutorable by Stoneforge Mystic, and that is at least pretty interesting. Most of the other cards here are the usual suspects that you would expect to see out of a blue deck in Legacy. I don't think I touched the main deck. This deck list, I almost recorded with it a couple of times and then something came up. So I didn't mess with the deck list much. I think I removed 1 Wasteland from it for an additional Flooded Strand, and if it didn't start with a Meticulous Archive, I added that. I don't actually remember. The major sideboard change that I made in respect for the metagame changing in the post-ban world was that these 4 white slots right here were just 4 copies of Solitude, and I think that's much less necessary now. So instead of having 4 things that can just hit Name Sticker Goblin for free at instant speed, I'm going to go with 2 generic pieces of removal, and then 2 things that can hit stuff other than creatures, because sometimes we might need to remove a Carpet of Flowers, an Exploration, or some other weird thing. With that being said, let's see what people are testing out there in the leagues. And should you find that you need some new cards, maybe some Modern Horizon cards as those spoilers come out, or you need some cards to adjust your deck for the new metagame, check out toamagic.com. And when you do, use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. And hey, you get free shipping too. Seems like a pretty good deal. Let's battle. So if memory serves, this is a pretty good Goblins player. I think my hand with an ETB tapped land that can't ponder on turn 1 doesn't quite cut it. I'd really like to play Stoneforge Mystic on turn 2 with a hand that looks like this. I think I'm going to ship this one and just look for something a little more stable. This is that something. This can interact with an early creature. This can interact with a second creature and has a cantrip to bridge me. I've got basics if my opponent has shifted to a Blood Moon deck. I think I'm just going to put the Batterskull back in the deck and keep my cards that have relevant text. Oh, not goblins. This probably just means that I play my Meticulous Archive on turn 1, although I don't exactly know what I need yet, so I guess that's a little bit of a problem. Now I've got some stuff versus combo. I guess I'm going to look for something like a Stoneforge Mystic. I absolutely do not want to draw that. It's a little awkward taking it out of the deck, but, I still have Batterskull, Cryptic Coats, the Aegis. Just land and pass. So Bowmasters is a thing that could be happening here. So I think I will ponder, but I think I need to ponder with Swords to Plowshares available, so I make my land drop first. Cool. I am good with this stuff. I am going to draw Stoneforge Mystic here. I think I'm just going to call it a turn there until I see some more cards from my opponent and I know whether they are like combo, control, mid-range, tempo, whatever. I don't think I want to commit further. I could be looking at Doomsday here. I am looking at Doomsday. The Cauldron being gone is a little rough. So I could let my opponent resolve the Doomsday, put Teferi in play, and attempt a Force of Will win from there. But I imagine that Cavernous Souls Thassa's Oracle gets involved no matter what. So I think I am just going to go ahead and Force of Will pitching Teferi, and then try to use Ponder to find a Daze or something. All right, cool. We got lucky. There's, I think, a Cryptic Coat on top of my library, which I don't want. I don't have a second Meticulous Archive here. So I'll just pick up a Tundra. Batterskull is not what I am looking for. I'm going to take a quick look at my deck list here. I have 3 Force of Wills, 4 Dazes remaining as the biggest cards that I want. A Wasteland is not too shabby. I think I'm going to Ponder prior to the Stoneforge, and then attempt to use the Stoneforge to shuffle. That's a little weird. If I take Force of Will, I don't have a blue card to pair with it. If I take Delver, I can flip it to Force of Will, but then I don't have a blue card to pair with it, unless I Cryptic Coat off Stoneforge? Oh, that's weird. That's a line I'm not used to. Okay. Okay. No, I think I like it. It's weird. I think I'm going to do this. Yeah, not having access to the Cauldron for the large amount of hasty damage is a little annoying here. Not the end of the world or anything, but that is really the direction that I would like to go versus Doomsday. There's the land drop. I do not care about this Thoughtseize. Actually, that's not true. I care because taking Stoneforge means that I lose my blue card for this Force of Will. Fuck, I do care about the Thoughtseize. I lied. Oh shit, we dodged. We dodged. I'm so happy. We take those. Flip to Force of Will. Go to Punchies. Big Punchies. 13. Jam Stoneforge. Yes. Is there any reason to take this? I think I can just take the Cryptic Coat. Man, Stoneforge fetching up a blue card when you don't have one is kind of a big deal. I'm sure my opponents have done that, but that's not something that I was like super, super actively thinking about in terms of lines until now. I fucking love Legacy. Like, I can play it 5 days a week as like a huge portion of my job, and I still get to discover cool new stuff. Days is not irrelevant. I think so that I play around opposing days, I'm just going to hold up Stoneforge, activate Cryptic Coat, put it in. Was there merit in attacking with the Stoneforge Mystic? And just not Cryptic Coating puts my opponent to 8? Maybe not. I don't think I'm stopping that. That is a lot of black mana. In the weird world where my opponent has Doomsday, this could allow them to cast both. Opponent could Thoughtseize me and then Doomsday. I beat that currently. I think I just let this resolve. There is a first Doomsday. I think I have to Force of Will and pitch Cryptic Coat so that I can daze a second Doomsday. It's a little weird. Pact of Negation. Understood. My opponent now gets their Doomsday pile. Don't know that daze gets me through this turn. Okay, they've got their pile made. They are a personal tutor build. So the daze doesn't do anything here. Daze doesn't do anything here still. My opponent is going to go like an Edge of Autumn or something like that. Hold priority, crack this for triple blue. The daze is still not doing anything. My opponent has 2 cards left in library. Daze still does not do anything. This is the Thassa's Oracle. The daze doesn't do anything. The Source of Plowshares does not do anything. And we are dead, unfortunately. So the Pact of Negation was just good enough to get through. It could have pushed 1 more point of damage on my turn. I did not hold back the ability to put in Cryptic Coat. I can pick up a Force of Negation pretty easily. I am happy enough with Dress Down as a way to address Thassa's Oracle. Flusterstorm is probably fine. And then we start getting into things like Surgical Extraction that like technically can shuffle Doomsday piles or extract Doomsday, but is like overall not exciting. I can probably greatly go down on the number of like equipment that I am playing. Like you can go, probably you can go, and you can also probably go. Maybe I'll leave one of you to just tutor up to deal with a random True Name or Shoulder the Apocalypse or something like that that hits play. Although part of that is like, how many Source of Plowshares am I leaving in? Source of Plowshares is not going to normally do anything. So like this could be my board plan, and if my opponent just slams something like a Murktide Regent or a Shouldered, every Stoneforge is a removal spell. Teferi answers it as well. I think I'm okay with that. Is Brazen Borrower better than this? I don't think so. Is Brazen Borrower better than Cryptic Coat number 2? Both blue, they both pitch to force. Brazen Borrower has some additional utility in bouncing random sideboard juke cards. I think I'll split. Sure. Okay, so we're pretty good as far as disruption goes. We're going to ponder looking for land number 2 so that we can do the whole Stoneforge into Cauldron thing. I do find land number 2 as well as multiple counter spells. I am perfectly happy with this. Let's put Force of Negation a couple down and draw the days now. My opponent did take a couple of mulligans, by the way, so they are not starting out on a fully powered hand. For sure. I will happily let my opponent cantrip. I'm not really in a tempo position here where I just have my clock in play already and I am just good to go. Oh, I fucked up, because I'm going to play Stoneforge this turn. I'm shuffling away my Force of Negation. I probably want Force of Negation days instead of days. Oh well. The show will go on. I am just going to pick up Cauldron here. Cauldron cuts through life totals fast normally, but if your opponent, passes the turn and loses half of their life, like Cauldron puts a hell of a dent in those sorts of situations. Also, I believe none of it is audible, but the guy across the street is using a pressure washer, and it's highly distracting to me, but is not showing up on my microphone. So, if I seem distracted, I am. I'm going insane. All right, we've got some movement from my opponent. A Cabal Ritual. You've got it. That's the 3 mana necessary for Doomsday. I will happily just daze that. My opponent forces. If I daze back, I probably just win the counter war. I am considering forcing back so I can just start attacking my opponent for 5. I don't think I want to just return my other land here and not be able to attack for 5. Okay, yeah. And since my opponent is on 2 lands with 1 card left, like, they don't get to force a Doomsday through next turn unless it's like exactly Dark Ritual plus Doomsday. I think that's okay. And I don't think I am changing my sideboarding at all. Daze, Fluster, Ponder. If I Ponder, Fluster isn't live. If I tap out for Stoneforge, Fluster isn't live. I think this is a keepable hand that I just kind of accept the fact that, like, there might be some turns that I am shields down for. Hopefully opponent just doesn't shove Dark Ritual Doomsday here. That is happening. So the Daze is probably... The Daze and the Flusterstorm are my best disruptive cards, but I think generally speaking the best card in my hand is my Ponder. If my opponent leaves me with the Ponder, sometimes I tap out and I don't hold Flusterstorm up. So I think they've got a lot of ways that they can play that turn. I am super happy to hit another land drop there. Makes my Ponder slightly better. Yes. Yes, I think I am A-okay with all of this. So I will get a Force of Will right now. I've got a Surgical a turn later. I can Surgical Doomsday if I do successfully counter one with Daze or Force of Will. That's happening. If my opponent keeps going this turn, like see if I just eat another discard spell or something. It is a Thoughtseize. I can counter that Thoughtseize to protect my Force of Will, which is a hard counter. This kind of makes my turn worse. I would love to shove Stoneforge Mystic. Just go get the Cauldron. I think I need this hard counter. I'm going to Daze. So now I'm going to draw Surgical. I don't remember what my last card under here was. Was it a land? I don't think it matters. I think pretty much no matter what, I fetch end of turn for Meticulous Archive. Like, I think that is just going to be a thing that I am interested in doing. I want to look for more counter spells. Yeah, absolutely. So now this weird thing can happen where I can Surgical Extraction something in my opponent's graveyard to make them not draw that Doomsday. But if they then cantrip in response, I lose out on all of the value of this Surgical Extraction. So, that's a thing. Absolutely not. Do not want another Stoneforge Mystic. That's pretty good. Force of Will, pitch some blue card with Flusterstorm and Surgical. I think that's good enough that I just pass the turn and let my opponent draw with Personal Tutor. That's a lot of mana. Just fluster it. They're going to have 6 total mana. They're going to use 3 of that for Doomsday. Storm is 1, Doomsday, Storm is 2, Force of Will, Storm is 3. Flusterstorm still counters all of that stuff. I'll let it go. So there is the Doomsday. So we will Force of Will. I think I'll get rid of Teferi. Edge of Autumn is fine. Just no backup, huh? Cool. Yeah. I think since I can just do this in Fluster, I'm just going to Surgically Extract Doomsday right now and see what couple of win conditions my opponent has left in their deck after this happens. All right, we've gotten the GGs from my opponent. They could not prevail. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists. And they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. All right, we are presumably playing against Dredge, which historically absolutely crushes blue decks in game 1, and then some amount of graveyard help makes the post-sideboard games bearable. Conceptually, how am I winning this? I have to kill my opponent fast. So the best way that I can win is threat backed by counterspell, which I don't have. I have removal. Removal is not actually that great. I think I am just going to mulligan this. I think I need a very specific sort of hand to win, and I am going to fish for that sort of hand. Fuck me. Okay, no. No. Well, how many of these do I have to keep? I have to keep 4? 1, 2, 3, probably 4. This is not quite what I want to see. We are putting all of our faith in Delver of Secrets, and I'll probably brainstorm immediately to flip it. I think that's the situation that I'm going to be in. My opponent is just completely avoiding spells by just hard discarding a Golgari Grave Troll. We're going to try to flip this Delver immediately. Fantastic. I don't really need to make my land drop this turn, right? I don't want to show my opponent Force of Will. I want to show my opponent Ponder, but I want to pitch Cryptic Coat to Force of Will. I think we're doing this. So we will flip our critter, attack for 3, and my Force of Will did not serve its primary purpose. Ooh, my opponent has Satoru. So whenever it and or one or more other non-token creatures enter the battlefield under your control, if they weren't cast or no mana was spent to cast them, draw a card. All right. So countering this potentially keeps the Dredger from getting back into the graveyard. So we're going to get rid of this. LED could let my opponent try again immediately. Cool. It seems like we might get to do some Delver things. And Delver plus City of Brass is 4 damage per turn cycle. We can't rely on all of that extra damage from my opponent. Ooh. I mean, yep. I will absolutely take out that land, like, very happily. My opponent has 6 cards in hand, so they can't just immediately hard discard. We've got some things that we need to dodge, like Lion's Eye Diamond, but we have a real chance here. Okay. How good are those top couple of cards? Thassa's Oracle, eh? Spicy. So I know that I have a sword on top of my deck that is not particularly good. We are definitely in play the spells that I have access to mode. Okay. Basic Plains, not living its best life over here. Delvers are quite awkward. They're never gonna flip. Can't play one this turn. We are brainstorm locked. Opponent is on a 3-ish turn clock. Emphasis on the ish. You know, Narcomoebas can get involved. That can be blockers. My opponent may or may not tap City of Brass. I may or may not connect with a Delver. So second City of Brass is live, which means Flashback Otherworldly Gaze is online. This looting can put 1 or even multiple dredgers into the graveyard. And theoretically, it seems like I am now safely attacking. Now, a brainstorm could happen here and things could get a little weird or something. Not this time. I'm going to Delver. I know that the Delver isn't flipping next turn because I just have another Delver on top. Ah, fuck, there's a Narcomoeba. So, things are probably about to get scary. Like, there's a Poxwalker here, there's a Satoru here, there's Otherworldly Gaze here. Cabal Therapy can get involved as well. I think I'm going to lose. Okay, something's happening. It is casting a Narcomoeba. Alright, so unfortunately this Delver is not flipping here. I do not want to reveal that card. So my opponent has one bridge from below. So if I attack with this flipped Delver, my opponent could double block, end up with 2 zombies. If I attack with both of these creatures, this Delver maybe gets through, maybe puts my opponent to 2, putting more pressure on City of Brass. Once my opponent is at exactly 2, flashback on this is not live. What about block and chump? That leaves my opponent at 3. Otherworldly Gaze is live. This creature is dead, 1 bridge is gone. I really want a flipped Delver in play no matter what. The next card of my library is 100% random. I think I am attacking with both. Alright, let's send in with both, see how my opponent treats this. Alright, it is 1 in front of both, so I keep my flyer alive. So there's 3 triggers from bridge from below here. 2 of these are producing zombies, and 1 of these is exiling bridge from below. My opponent gets to stack those in the way that is most beneficial for them, and then I will go ahead and play out my Delver. So now my opponent doesn't have true creatures in play for the purposes of Cabal Therapies and future bridges. So that's good. I'm guessing this is a dredge. This is a dredge. No Narcomoebas, no bridges. There's still a Poxwalker in there somewhere. So my opponent could Cabal Therapy me. See that the coast is clear. Bring back Poxwalkers. Poxwalkers enters play. They dredge 5 at that point. I guess they could Cabal Therapy themselves to turn it into a dredge 6. I'm getting attacked. My opponent isn't conceding. 14. It is casting a Golgari Thug, bringing my opponent to 1. Dead in the air to Delver? Oh, I see. That is just their Cabal Therapy fodder. Sure. Okay, hold on. Why didn't this trigger? A non-token creature entered the battlefield under your control. None of them were cast. Wasn't cast. Or no mana was spent them. Draw a card. I'm not sure why my opponent didn't draw a card there. It's a non-token creature. It was not cast. I don't know. Alright, so Cabal Therapy resolves. Alright, so they have named Dread Return. Oh, sorry, Satoru is not in play. I'm an idiot. So my opponent Dread returns the Satoru. So now my opponent has Satoru enter, so they can dredge again. There's a Narcomoeba on top, so that guaranteed enters play, which causes my opponent to Satoru again. Ah, they fucking hit the last Narcomoeba. That's the one card I needed them not to hit. Oh, sorry, I was mistaken. Oh no, they put one of the Narcomoebas back, so I guess it was not technically the last Narcomoeba. Yeah, that's rough. Do I just die now? Like, am I just going to die to Thassa's Oracle here? Oh, what is that? That's a Cabal Therapy. I'm just gonna F6 here. So my opponent gets another Satoru trigger. Multiple of them, in fact. Is this optional? How does this work? Yeah, it is not a May. It is a draw a card. So now my opponent can Dread return. That returns a bunch of Poxwalkers here. My opponent gets Thassa's Oracle, and they sacrificed the Satoru to the Dread return so that they don't end up decking to its trigger. Yeah, kind of was feeling like I was going to die, and I was correct. So surgical extractions certainly come in. Against this build specifically, the ability to exile Satoru maybe matters more than normal. So maybe we path to exile here. Fluster's playable. Force of Negation is playable. It feels like because of Satoru, I care about my Swords to Plowshares a lot. I also think I need counterspells. I think this is going. I think Teferi feels very slow and mana efficient. So does this. I'm going to assume that I get all of these into the deck. I assume one of these can go. Maybe this is not necessary. Cryptic Coat even necessary? Cryptic Coat lets me get a blue card off Stoneforge Mystic. I maybe need to keep one Cryptic Coat or Aegis. Batterskull sometimes matters for stabilizing versus zombies. I need 2 more cuts. Just assume that that's slow. I really want to cut a piece of equipment. It obviously can't be this one. I think I'm going to give up the ability to get a blue card off Stoneforge Mystic to keep in the stabilize versus random fair zombie token method and the force my damage through method of like doing stuff with Stoneforge. Unexciting, but fine. Okay. Let's figure out what's going on with our lives. Nah. Well, Ponder came right back. I'm not intentionally holding up Flusterstorm on the first turn because there's a decent chance that my opponent just moves to discard and discards without using a spell. So I think I want to Ponder and look for a threat in the first turn cycle. Yes. That is happening. Oh. You've got it. Swords is awkward given Island, but is otherwise a fine card. I think I am going to Wasteland and hold up Flusterstorm. I don't think I am going to Surgical Otherworldly Gaze. I think that card has other purposes. Cephalid Coliseum, obviously very good. I just want to fluster this. Just trade 1 for 1 and then Ponder. My opponent could LED, like crack in response, and then I Surgical. I think I'm just going to attempt the even trade here. I assume the LED is somewhat valuable here, and that my opponent will not want to crack. Are we doing this? Just put my opponent to the test, like win quickly through Surgical. How many Wastelands do I have? Is it 2 or 3? It is 2, so there is only one more Wasteland here that I could be pondering for. I don't have a blue card to pair with a Force of Will or Force of Negation that I find. So I think I am just going to Stoneforge Mystic, but I'm not sure that I am going for Cauldra. I think I am just going to grab the Lion Sash. I think 4 Cauldra hits is just too slow right now. Alright, my opponent is not bottlenecked on mana after the Wasteland, which is a little unfortunate. Cabal Therapy. Targeting me resolves. My opponent just probably names the Lion Sash that they know about rather than, you know, making a called shot for something stronger like Surgical. 5 cards in graveyard for the purposes of Threshold. Oh, that's a fucking draw. Do I Ponder? I think I just hold up Swords. Go to Punchies. And if Ponder is still in my hand next turn, then I can cast the Ponder and potentially convert it into something like a Surgical or a Flusterstorm or whatever. I think given how scary I've already seen cards like Satoru be, I want to just be able to immediately respect those cards. Alright, we have a Faithless Looting, which can be flashed back via LED. We could end up in a weird priority pass situation if my opponent ends up doing something that's not the Faithless Looting. 8 cards in graveyard. Cephalid Coliseum is live. So crack LED, Cephalid Coliseum, and Otherworldly Gaze is like definitely a thing that can happen. Okay, we are going for blue. There is the Cephalid Coliseum. My opponent has Stinkweed Imp, Golgari Thug in there, and also has the ability to flashback Otherworldly Gaze. I don't think I am firing off Surgical on a Dredger here. I am going to have other opportunities to like hit Narcomoebas and other things that matter. So there is a Narcomoeba. I can potentially just take out all of the Narcomoebas right here. So how bad is it if this Narcomoeba hits play? My opponent gets to Cabal Therapy on me and take out my Surgicals. Otherworldly Gaze is still a thing. I think this is a fine opportunity. Can I go after bridges here? No, there's no bridge. Okay, then I'm going after Narcomoebas. I will pay the life. My opponent could respond with Otherworldly Gaze in an attempt to flip another Narcomoeba into play before this happens. Chain of Vapor here, a good thing to keep an eye on. Portable Hole, a good thing to keep an eye on. All right, so there's the Gaze. It's now a lot harder for my opponent to actually put bodies into play. That's the good news. Will Meticulous Archive another Swords? Is that good? Feels like no. My opponent's just on a 2-turn clock. I just want to find counter spells here. I can Ponder, get a little deeper. Ponder looks at 2 cards. I guess Ponder looking at 2 cards is fine. But let's see what that 3rd card down is. It's a new Surgical. Hell yeah. Bam. 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 No shuffle. Go to combat. Attack for 6. Opponent goes to 5. I could sit here and figure out what I have to Surgical, but I'm pretty sure if I just hold up Surgical, I don't lose. Like, Surgical plus Swords plus Daze is just too much here. So, say no to Careful Study, and we're done. Sideboarding feels about right. I have a hand with turn 0 interaction, multiple cantrips, multiple threats. The Batterskull is not good. I like most of the rest of this hand. Opponent is going to 4 cards. I don't really know what I am, like, in theory, supposed to Surgical against this version of the deck, like, just kind of playing against it for the first time. It seems like taking out Narcomoeba really makes it tough for my opponent to put creatures into play and kind of kick off their combo turns. A lot of times I end up taking out Bridge from Belows because Bridge from Belows stop my opponent from doing many of the more unfair aspects. But I just haven't seen enough games with Satoru in play in Dredge to get a feel for that. If you have strong opinions because you played the matchup a bunch, throw them down in the comments below. Would love to see thoughts. Faithless Looting occurs. Thug and Grave Troll. I don't think I am trying to surgically extract Grave Troll here. I can Ponder for a blue counterspell, or I can just get on board with my threat. I think I am going to just get on board with my threat. Let's pop this out. I guess I need a stop in my opponent's draw step at some point. I am gonna let that go. My opponent dredges a lot. Okay, so now it's like, am I taking out the Narcomoeba or the Bridge? I think I just take out the Narcomoebas. That felt pretty good last time. Right, Narcomoeba. Opponent has an Otherworldly Gaze. This seems fine. I don't think I am doing Upkeep Brainstorm this time. I think I want to be a card deeper before I cast this. Yes, I will reveal that Path to Exile. That's perfectly fine. Now, how do I want to play this? Look at the maximum number of cards. I think look at the maximum number of cards. Those are very awkward here. Like, I can make my next land drop, but it's not the blue land drop that I want. And Fluster is not up immediately. I don't like that. That's not quite perfect either. We'll see how bad this turn cycle ends up being. There's Otherworldly Gaze. So conceptually, it seems to me like my opponent needs to like cast and resolve a Golgari Thug and then do some like Cabal Therapy, Poxwalker stuff with that. Okay, yeah, so opponent's going for land drops. They can dredge a Golgari Thug and then cast that. Dread Return in graveyard, Cabal Therapy in graveyard. I think I need to hit the land drop 100% of the time here. I'm going to do this, grab Tundra, send in for 3. Opponent's at 11. I think I'm just going to hold up multiple removal spells and Brainstorm. All right, opponent takes a natural draw. This is a thing. A Cephalid Colosseum. That's live. Do I get punished by casting Brainstorm and my opponent does this in response? They can't cast like sorceries like Cabal Therapy and Dread Return right now. I think this is okay. Okay, I've got land drops. Batterskull can go back in my deck, and I will just redraw some random card. It doesn't really matter what. Do this. So, send in with Delver. Opponent is at 8. Let's do that whole Lion Sash thing, I think. That seems like just an okay and safe use of my mana. It's maybe better to hold up multiple different pieces of interaction. But I guess I am holding up this and all of these technically. This is just a really good way of messing with the Dread Return style cards. It also presumably makes me have lethal next turn. There is an Otherworldly Gaze, getting back a Poxwalkers. Okay, I see. That's another way to get things started. I can path that or swords that or whatever. Ah, that's another creature. So I can stop a Dread Return right now. I have multiple different named cards for Cabal therapies. How many Cabal therapies are over there? One Cabal therapy. I'm going to set a stop. I think my opponent gets their Icarid. See what happens here. Regular draw. I will take that hit. 11. Cabal therapy is happening, targeting me. So if I want to get rid of Dread Return, my window to do that is while this is still on the stack. I guess I can just get rid of the thing that Dread Return targets. All right, so they choose the path to exile that they know about. Careful Study seems fine. Like, it's obviously going to be good. There's now multiple Dread Returns in Graveyard. There's one Satoru. Am I going to lose to just fair zombie production from this Poxwalkers? Hopefully not. I don't think I can tap this mana. I don't think I should have played Lion Sash in retrospect. I forgot that they could Poxwalker on my own turn. I'm worried that if I use this mana for Lion Sash, my opponent just Cephalid Colosseums the remainder of their deck, and I die to Thoracle. I can also just time my opponent out here, very realistically. Alright, so Dread Return now targets Satoru. So at this point, I do have to go for the Satoru, but there's still this. I think if I let that Satoru enter play, though, like, it kills me. I don't know, maybe Thoracle this way just kills me, too. It feels like spending 3 mana on Lion Sash was just worse than leaving up Swords Brainstorm Path. Yeah, so now I'm just going to get Dread Return Thoracled. Yeah, but if I don't bite there, I think I just lose to a zombie army, just like the same way. I think I lost this one when I played Lion Sash. I think that one's on me. Okay, I can keep Plains and Island and like try to fill the graveyard for a Murktide Regent here. I am not really excited about this hand, but I don't know that it's worth mulliganing either. Let's do this. I don't need this draw step stop anymore. If this is just a DRC, I am going to just cycle Lorien Revealed and place Swords to Plowshares on my own turn around Daze and not expose my Swords to Plowshares to Daze at all. I would be okay with a Ponder getting dazed. Ooh. How do I feel about that? Not bad. I think generally speaking, I don't want to be attacking my opponent's mana. Like, I have very good uses of mana. And I guess I could do this in my opponent's upkeep to better play around something like Force of Negation. A Force of Will's pitching a Spell Pierce. You got it. My opponent likes their card. I do have another removal spell here. So, like, I have the ability to not just die to this creature. I think I'm fine if a second DRC comes down immediately, or, you know, a Delver comes down as well this turn. Things are a little scary, but it is not the end of the world. I had a weird draw step stop there. These are like reasonable Magic the Gathering cards that are not quite what I'm looking for right now. I can take Force of Will to hit the next threat that comes down, but I maybe just like end up running that Force of Will into something like a Spell Pierce. I love Teferi if I have a third land. I think I'm just going to shuffle this. Like, I very much want the extra island. The extra island unlocks 2 removal spells in my hand. The extra island unlocks Murktide Regent. It unlocks Ponder into follow-up card very easily while still playing around Daze. I am fine taking a point of damage here. Delver's fine. I got that turn of Breathing Room, which means that I can start vomiting spells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can just do a Murktide. I think I'm going to do a Murktide another turn from now. I think I am okay attempting to remove a creature here. And if it doesn't work, I'm good with it. Yeah, like this is totally fine. So plan to answer one creature, plan to effectively answer the other creature. And then we might get an end of turn surveil. Nope. Bolt my face. Bolt my face. The DRC attacking for an extra 2 points of damage is kind of a big deal here. To a Ponder. That'll put a sorcery into graveyard. I don't know that I'm going to get whacked for 6 this turn, but I'm probably getting hit for 4. My opponent could find something like a Bauble that does turn it into 6. Opponent has 2 cards remaining. It's not Force of Will blue card, so that's very good for me. The bad news is I am taking 6 this turn. Hopefully the last card is not Spell Pierce. That would be a little annoying. Not so much anymore. So I believe that I'm interested in taking out one of these creatures, and it's going to be the one that provides additional selection for sure. And now I'm okay just pondering for some other card. This is going to be a Tundra. And I'd just like to find some other removal spell or some other piece of protection for Murktide Regent. This stuff's pretty mid. Teferi is excellent. I am quite happy with that. So in an ideal world, my opponent does not play another creature, and I can just attempt to stabilize the board one way or another, either through a large Murktide or a Teferi. Now I can attempt both. So now I can go ahead and attempt Teferi and then do Murktide Regent with Daze backup afterwards. Now this might get some amount of Brainstorm type stuff involved. Force of Negation on Teferi pitching Brainstorm is totally fine. We're going to 4, so Bolt doesn't kill us, but we're in striking distance. Ponder, Swords, Lorien revealed. One other card. Giant Murktide Regent. This stabilizes versus the Delver. What the fuck does this do? Protection from blue and black. Surveil to cast an instant or sorcery. Got it. So this basically does nothing. I can't attack into this Delver. I just can't afford to eat 3 and then Lightning Bolt. Real tension with Murktide Regent, just like clearing out my graveyard there. So this is a 2-turn clock, but I can't really use it. The risk is just too great. Hey, there's that thing that I just played around. That does not eat a Daze. I might be forced into a position where I have to attack with Murktide Regent. Or card types. 1 artifact, though. So, Stoneforge or Lion Sash. Lion Sash away Mishra's Bauble after my opponent attacks, so I can block DRC if it crashes in. Guess I want to leave the planes up. Oh, I guess there's also the Assimilation Whoozy What's It. Oh, no. I only have one of those? Oh, I used one already. Okay, yeah, so we'll do the Lion Sash line that I talked about. So cast this. This blocks Delver. This takes that out of combat, or like makes it smaller. Let's see if I get daggered by another Mishra's Bauble or equivalent. Counterbalance. The surveil happens. I need to let this counter... Fuck, there's 5 card types. If I daze this, there's 6 card types. If my opponent attacks with both creatures, I die. That is frustrating. Like, I could have just let the counterbalance resolve. Yep. I am dead. Unless my opponent does not attack. Yeah, so I have 1 mana available, so I can eat 1 card type, die to the other. That's super frustrating. Anyway, that's why you don't play Sword of Once and Future. I win that game if that's like a Sword of Fire and Ice that can just ping that Delver. Draw me some extra cards. So I have 4 more easy removal spells that I can do here, and I'll also probably immediately make this substitution. I don't really know that I need to be Force of Willing most of my opponent's stuff. I don't know that I need to 2-for-1 myself when my opponent is just going to have more efficient counter spells than I have. My opponent is the tempo deck. I don't know that I'm super excited about Daze either. I played Brazen Borrower as another thing that just blocks flyers. How's Cryptic Coat? This feels very slow. I have a lot of cards I don't really like. Let's get some Flusters in there. And then some number of counterspells, it looks like, are probably coming back in. I guess it's Daze. I guess we're keeping this. It just has a lot of basic lands. And my average card is pretty good in this deck. Alright, let's just go ahead and play a land and pass here. I don't think I am going to be doing a Surveil land at the end of my turn. I think I am just, like, picking up basics. Sure, that's fine. Targeting themselves. I just want to trade resources here. I don't have a lot going on. I don't really hate just trading resources here. Just one of my cards for one of your cards. I don't have like a Stoneforge Mystic or a Delver to defend right now, so I'm just okay with maybe keeping my opponent off of a threat for an extra turn while I set up. Hey, Teferi's not bad. In case my opponent randomly has Stifle, I'm just gonna fetch now. Call it a turn. This gets me a basic island. This gets me a basic plains. I am already playing around a Daze. Delver's fine. Oh, cool. So I can potentially just clear out this creature. Island cycle for my next land. I'd love to draw a 2-drop here. No such luck. I think I want my opponent to play a creature and then I play Teferi. I don't want to Teferi and just like immediately get it Pyroblasted at sorcery speed on my opponent's turn. I also am not heartbroken if this just eats a Daze here. Yeah, cool. So my Delvers and friends that I play from here on out are now significantly scarier. It turns out that Fluster at the beginning of the game was like really quite good. This could be a Meticulous Archive. Am I okay if this gets rebbed? I think I'm okay if this gets rebbed here. Oh shit, I'm getting a Force of Will for it? Fuck yeah. I am good with that. So my mana's stable. My opponent was missing land drops. They don't have threats to play, which means they probably have a bunch of like situational counterspells or something. It's not Red Elemental Blasts. It's not Spell Pierce. So like, are they on like Daze, Force of Wills, Force of Negations, like that sort of stuff? Or like Lightning Bolts? Ponder's totally fine. You may seek the beast. I think that's Murktide. Murktide? That's what this will be for. Assuming my opponent can even get to that. Ooh. Immediately draw Brainstorm, cast Brainstorm, double Delver. That sounds great. Oh, I can't actually double Delver. Do I even care about Murktide if I have Sword of Fire and Ice? Actually, I can just play single Delver and equip. That already, like, potentially just beats a Murktide. Yeah, put back, like, Brainstorm, one Delver on top, make land drop, play Delver. Now fetch, protect Delver from Lightning Bolt and friends, and still have an answer for a creature that my opponent plays. Counterbalance resolves. See what happens with this. I will reveal a Daze, as a matter of fact. So now this Delver hits like a truck and is pretty close to unblockable. 5 initial damage, 2 Sword of Fire and Ice damage, plus some additional card draw here. The additional Daze is maybe not the best. I don't really have a use for my mana from here, so we're chilling. That's fine. My opponent shuffles. It does not seem like my opponent would like to wasteland me. Kinda weird. Stoneforge is great. Let's just keep sending this in. Opponent could do something like a Brazen Borrower to bounce the equipment out of play. We're not seeing that, though. Path to Exile. Sure. I'm just going to use the things that can be wastelanded here. My opponent has a counterbalance trigger. There is a meltdown over there. Well, that can potentially get rid of a sword. Costs 4 mana to get rid of this sword. Delver still kills my opponent in 2 turns from there. This Stoneforge could die. I could get wastelanded off of Batterskull. I think I'm just going to pick up a Lion Sash and not play it, though. I expect this is getting bolted. I don't think I need to path my own Stoneforge, especially with Meltdown on top of my opponent's library. Sure feels like my opponent's dead. Let's see if that is true. Send it. Now it is petty theft time. If this trigger goes through, my opponent does just die. Accordingly, I think I'm good with this. If counterbalance randomly flips a 2 here, it is slightly awkward. Opponent does not use that ability, so they'll pay. And then I will go ahead and just hard cast a Daze on this and see if we can just finish off my opponent right now. There is a lightning bolt on top. All right. So, Sword of Once and Future, bad. Sword of Fire and Ice, good. Confirmed. You saw it here first, folks. I think on the draw, I'm going to get rid of a Daze for a Cryptic Coat. I don't have all that many creatures in the deck, and some of them, like the Murktide Regents, aren't just the easiest to put into play. So I think I'm just going to adjust and have one more body in here. I think my Dazes are worse than my opponent's Dazes. Okay, I mean, I have threats, I have removal, I have cantrips, I have a lot of flexibility with this hand. I can do this on 2 basics. This is pretty good. The scariest thing that could happen is probably my opponent leading on DRC and a Bobble, but we dodged at least that much. So now the next question is, like, when do I cast Swords to Plowshares? When do I cast Delver? I think I cast my own Delver immediately. I would rather have Delver get dazed than Swords to Plowshares. I think my removal resolving matters a lot. Does their Delver flip? If their Delver doesn't flip, I will 100% trade Delvers if my opponent makes that offer. How you feeling about that trade? Okay, my opponent is making the offer. I'm going to sit here for just a second like I'm thinking about it, and then I am going to block. I don't want my opponent to know that just, like, I am fully 100% totally happy with this. Just not going to give them that free information. That's fine. We've got Swords to Plowshares for that. So my Delver did not get dazed last turn. If I Swords with my mana this turn, I can just be Spell Pierced. I can play around that next turn. I think I am okay jamming Stoneforge Mystic into Daze here. Although I am not exactly sure what I get with the Stoneforge if the Stoneforge does resolve. Alright, I have to figure it out. Okay. My white mana situation isn't the best for something like Lion Sash. I think I'm just going to try to drag the game on and get a removal spell here. Getting this also incentivizes my opponent to get rid of the Stoneforge so that I don't have an uncounterable removal spell. Yeah, your counterbalance resolves. I don't believe that the counterbalance has countered a spell yet, despite being in play in 3 games. And obviously no attack from the opponent here. My opponent put a card on top. It's probably a 1-drop. I think I'm going to play a land and Assimilation Aegis DRC. I'm just not sure when exactly I do it. I think if my opponent goes for a fetch in my end step, I do it there. Otherwise, I do it in their upkeep. Now that this is here, they're fetching away a card from counterbalance that they didn't want. Maybe I go ahead and do this now. Take out DRC. Wasteland doesn't do much here. I'm going to cast an end of turn Brainstorm, mostly to see what's going on with this counterbalance. And that can let me know if the coast is clear for some of my future 1-drops, or if my opponent can just answer the Teferi immediately because they have a Brazen Borrower on top. They've just got a Trop. That is fine. I will redraw my basic land. If I play Teferi, Teferi is spell pierceable. I don't think I care. I think I just want to shove this and see if this gets like a red elemental blast or something out of my opponent's hand. Seek the Beast in response. That clears the top cards. There's a Spell Pierce. My opponent does Spell Pierce. They don't use the counterbalance trigger. So now I just end up deciding if I want to ponder into the counterbalance. I think it is fine to do so. I don't super care about the card if it does not resolve. I don't care if it gets dazed. I'm trading 1-for-1 on resources. There is a ponder on top. Now my opponent can put this in play. I can do nasty things with Swords to Plowshares to that, so that's not really a big deal. Yeah, do your thing. A DRC. Oh, I actually love drawing that land there. So I think I use Stoneforge Mystic as the bait here. There's a Pyroblast on top, so I know my 1-drops are not currently valid. Force of Will blue card as the 2 things that are left. My opponent can now Surveil and get rid of that Pyroblast if they don't want it. They keep it. So this gets countered. I'm now going to set a draw step stop here. And this game might end up coming down to what card is second from the top on my opponent's library, unfortunately. So, like, is it a 1-drop on top of their library right now? Yeah, okay, that's fair. I think I swords the other one in response here. Yeah, so I guess I should not have let my opponent draw. I should have done this in the upkeep. I forgot about Pyroblast on Assimilation Aegis. All right, there's a Wasteland on top. My opponent will junk this, and then get a blind flip. Reveals Delver. Yeah, so I got punished for not doing that in my upkeep. So I'll take some damage. Or sorry, in their upkeep, to clarify. And I'll lose a land. So I know their top card is Delver, so I can't play this right now. I'm going to take a decent amount of damage here. My mistake is very costly. I'm at 9 now. And potentially facing down 9 damage. I'll put it into play, I guess. When it reveals yet another Delver. So I take 6 in the air. And then I can't do enough removal to get out of that. Okay. I think that loss is on me. I think if I don't take 3 points of damage and I'm just facing down one of these, I can have a couple more turns to do this. I think that one's on me. Or at least I gave up the possibility of winning. Okay, I think I'm looking at a pretty medium hand versus some Yorion deck. I don't really think it's worth mulliganing. Like, I have 2 colored lands plus a wasteland if we end up playing against a multicolored Yorion pile, but I'm just not excited about this. In a lot of cases, the Force of Will has to take the Brainstorm with it. It is a Grief. So some Yorion Grief nonsense pile. The Grief is not worth Force of Willing here. I do lose Force, which makes me think we're immediately going to see the Reanimate follow-up, which we do. And I lose my Brainstorm, which I guess I'm okay with, because I think this was the best card in the hand. That is sweet. Now I am going to hope that I do not just immediately eat another Thoughtseize effect and lose access to my blue mana, but this stabilizes my life total in the short term. Swords to Plowshares, confirmed good versus Grief. I wonder if my opponent is a white-black pest control sort of deck. Lion Sash on the mana that I am currently on feels quite awkward to me, so I think I am just going to go ahead and Stoneforge Mystic here. I am not sure what to grab. I think I am just going to grab something that keeps me from dying. I think one of the scariest things that can happen is just end of turn Entomb into some sort of large reanimate effect in a way that gets around my Lion Sash and doesn't care about True Name Nemesis. Opponent apparently has a pretty difficult Surveil trigger, but they do keep it. Yeah, looks like white-black pest control, maybe Ephemerates, Solitudes in there as well. It does not feel like I am the beatdown here. Playing Lion Sash directly into Orcish Bowmasters is a little weird, so I think I am just going to hold up Stoneforge Mystic and potentially awkwardly tax my opponent's mana. I'm not quite to blue-blue for True Name Nemesis yet. Let's get rid of this. Stop. Ancient Tomb. Are there initiative dudes in there? Aye, there's initiative dudes in there. I am terrified that this represents Ephemerate. So I'm going to do something that might look a little weird here. I am going to daze this spell. This gives me no true value off the daze other than blanking Ephemerate, which I think is just worth a card. So while this trigger is on the stack, I am now going to do this and Assimilation Aegis this Ravenloft Adventurer out of play. And now there's no window for my opponent to fetch basic planes and then hold up Ephemerate. I can turn Stoneforge Mystic into this thing. Is that what I'm doing? I'm always doing that. It's worth 2 damage this turn. It might just be better. No, I fucked up. I wasn't supposed to play the island. Or maybe I was. Okay. I think I figured out where I'm going now. I think I attack with my Stoneforge Mystic and then get Basic Island. Basic Island then unlocks both True Name Nemesis and Murktide Regent next turn. So I will Lion Sash, and then I think I get rid of the Ancient Tomb. The burst of mana, 2/5 mana, allows my opponent to hardcast some things like Solitude that could be relevant. It is a grief. That is fine. I think my Murktide Regent is better than my True Name Nemesis, because next turn I can Murktide while holding up a Lion Sash activation, and it's sort of a big deal. Alright, my opponent agrees. I think I'm going to forge up Lion Sash, so that no matter what, Lion Sash is never killed by Orcish Bowmasters. That's a weird one. I think I'm not doing that this turn. I think I'm just going to go ahead and play True Name Nemesis, target you, and pass the turn with good blockers for grief available. Better ability to play around Swords to Plowshares. I just don't want my opponent to take the initiative here. Urborg. My opponent drew an initiative creature. Daggers. Seems to me like these counters go on Seasoned Dungeoneer. Opponent agrees. So there's that Ephemerate that I played around earlier in the game. So opponent, unfortunately, waited a little too long to do that. So we can just cast this, bounce this island. Opponent can't pay for it. And then I get to drop Teferi, take the Seasoned Dungeoneer out of play, and attack for a bunch. Yeah, I think this fogs enough damage that it's just worth doing, despite the awkwardness of bouncing a creature with this good of an ETB trigger. Aldra is a wild draw. So that always takes the initiative. So this is effectively 8 damage. This is effectively 11 damage. I think I am just going to continue to push damage here. If my opponent wants to make this trade, they do. They can still take the initiative back by playing Seasoned Dungeoneer. But now I just have this Cauldra thing that is about to happen. And that will leave my opponent dead next turn. Activated Teferi, so we're good on that front. My opponent's Yorion doesn't come into play here. I'm not low enough that I care about Trap. I don't care about Ephemerate to get into Archives either. I'll take my 5. Force of Will not doing anything here. So plus... Yeah. Got Cauldra. And my opponent scoops it up. So we've got Reanimates, we've got Ephemerates, we've got ETB triggers. We know what's going on over there. Path to Exile is going to be good. Dress Down is interesting versus initiative creatures and griefs and stuff. It's a little slow. Surgicals are awkward. There's only so much redundancy in my opponent's deck. They're a Yorion deck rather than a 60-card deck, so their density of like Animate Deads and Reanimates, it's going to be a little lower than normal. I've also shown them a Lion Sash. This is technically playable. This does some interesting stuff versus Reanimates and Animate Deads. Prismatic Ending is maybe not great. I'm not sure exactly how to board for this. A lot of times when you're playing the control role, you think, am I a Swords to Plowshares matchup? Am I answering things when they get into play? Or am I a Force of Will matchup where I want to stop things before they get into play? In theory, I can use creatures to poke my opponent and take the initiative, but like once creatures are in play, the ephemerates are kind of scary. This is something I have played against so little, and by that I specifically mean a black-white Yorion scam deck that I don't know that I have authoritative answers. I don't think I like Sword of Once and Future. I don't know that I'm in love with Daze on the draw, but I don't know. I'm going to get rid of the Dazes on the draw despite the fact that my opponent is playing 4-drops, I think. Keep the Forces, bring in some amount of additional stuff. I kind of like Flusters still. But I think I'm just hitting the time limit of how much time I have to sit here thinking about this. I can revisit after another game. This is a perfectly fine hand. Opponent kept their 7 and does have Grief. We've now seen Dark Ritual, which is their way to ramp towards initiative creatures. That makes sense. Dark Ritual also could be incentive to have something like Opposition Agent, so that's just kind of something that I'm going to need to keep in the back of my head as well. We lose the Force of Will again. Did they line up Grief Reanimate again in their Yorion deck list? They did. And I lose Swords to Plowshares. My opponent's down to 3 cards, though. That's the good news. I would really like to Surveil land. But please note that I have expressed that I understand that Opposition Agent may be in my opponent's deck. But I think I want end of turn Surveil land more than my other options here. If I Sorcery Speed Surveil land, I could just get Wastelanded. And if my opponent plays out a Wasteland, I can fetch a basic, and I will just know that I need to do that. Chrome Mox is fine. A Charming Prince, sure. An initiative creature on turn 1 after Grief on turn 2 is rough. This is the sort of scenario where the Dazes are good. I think I'm fully just going to end up being too slow now. But let's see if we can immediately find a removal spell. Hey, we did. So I will draw that. And I think I need to get a little greedy here. Or I guess it's not greedy. I'm going to let my opponent make their Forge decision and hope that they forge onto Seasoned Dungeoneer. All right, they are going for the Scry. They junked 2 cards. I am just going to take out Seasoned Dungeoneer now before my opponent gets a draw step. And then I will let them draw. Unfortunately, it's so important for me to remove the threats as they're hitting play that I can't play my own threat to threaten the initiative. All right. We will cycle Lorien Revealed. Just grab a Tundra. We're super wastelandable already, so no point in kind of messing with that further. Path is quite good. 1, 2, 3, 4. Path could be 5. Ephemerate is a thing. So I don't think I do that. So I think I give up a little bit of optimization to not just immediately eat Ephemerate on Grief and then lose my Murktide Regent. Sure. Opponent's going for treasure. Do I want to path this now? Or another draw at Ephemerate happens? I think so. Get out. Then my opponent can have their treasure. Potentially no creature here. So my opponent may have some awkward cards like Reanimate in hand that are currently not live. If they don't have a creature, they probably put that Yorion to hand, which they don't do, so that's a little weird. I'm going to attack with Murktide Regent and see what happens. I don't think playing Teferi pre-combat changes things a lot. Send this in. All right, I take the initiative. I don't think which basic it is matters too much at this point. Teferi? Teferi's awkward versus Bowmasters. My opponent doesn't have Solitude. I already would have gotten Solituded. I play Teferi, my opponent casts Bowmasters. I go to 12. They create 2 bodies. They always take the initiative. Maybe I just play Stoneforge. Let's tap this with Urborg. Fuck, its Opposition Agent instead. That's not great. Because now my opponent... Oh, this is optional. This is a May. You control them while they're searching their library, but I make the decision. So I will not use Stoneforge Mystic's ability. Sick. I can potentially just chump block with Stoneforge Mystic to hold the initiative this turn. That seems well worth a card. This potentially turns on a reanimate from my opponent. Not really sure that that matters. There's Yorion to hand. I can maybe just bounce a Chrome Mox out of play to stop Yorion from happening. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, sure. This gives my opponent a second creature, making Teferi slightly worse. I'm not really sure how much that matters. You may untap your opposition agent. Perfectly fine with just staying on the forge into trap line here. That's a weird draw. That almost makes me want to attack with Murktide Regent, see if my opponent takes 9, bounce opposition agent out of play, and then Stoneforge for an answer to Yorion. But it kind of seems like if I just bounce the Yorion out of play and play Stoneforge Mystic, that also just wins me the game. I guess either way, Murktide is attacking. So I guess we can Murktide attack first and see if my opponent wants to block. Being dead to the trap trigger is kind of rough, but they might not have a choice. They are at 3. Yeah. I'm gonna just take the Yorion out of play. There's no guarantee that my opponent can put that back into play anyway. And then I'm just going to play a secondary body and say no to the trigger for the second time this game. So my opponent now this turn needs to kill Murktide Regent or otherwise be able to block it while also taking the initiative. So that means answering Stoneforge and Murktide while taking the initiative. It's not impossible, but it's tough. Alternatively, they can take the initiative with an initiative creature and then remove Murktide Regent while also not dying to Stoneforge Mystic. We indeed have the concession here. GG's. Okay. Hand here is unexciting but reasonable. I don't know what I am pondering for in terms of the matchup, but I probably know that I am looking for a threat. So I think I am comfortable pondering looking for a Delver or whatever. 3 pieces of equipment seems like a bit much when I already have a Batterskull. Especially since, like, yeah, perfect. That's literally the card I had in mind that I would like to draw. Anyway, 3 pieces of equipment, bit much when I already have a Batterskull. Especially when Brainstorm is probably such a good draw right now. I'm a little mana heavy and I don't like the Batterskull. Green? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Something order? I imagine that exploration was much more valuable than the Mox Diamond. Could be wrong. Booties. Booties have resolved. Another Stoneforge is good. Urza's Saga is gonna be scary. That feels like the sort of thing that's pretty likely to be in my opponent's hand. I think Urza's Saga tokens are just going to outsize my Batterskull Germ. Okay. We dodged the bullet on Urza's Saga immediately. That's the good news. Bad news is I don't have something like the Swords to Plowshares immediately to answer a 2020. If that's something that is on my opponent's radar for the not too distant future. And never mind. Never didn't have it. Hashtag skill game. So I guess from here I would love to draw another basic white source. That makes my life a little bit easier. I have a billion different good equipments. Like, this one finishes the game. This one keeps Life from the Loam in check. This one is backup for Merit Lage. I think I just want to clock my opponent. Like, I think I need to kill them. With how good Urza's Saga is going to be against my deck, just conceptually speaking, I think I need to end this one. Yeah, that's fine. I am a 2 wasteland deck. We're not attacking that. Okay. Life gets a little bit harder. That's fine. That's okay too. I'm thinking about whether or not I want to bounce this out of play, whether or not I want to keep this to try to bounce a Mox Diamond and get value that way. I don't super want to Swords this. I think I'm just going to take the redraw off of Teferi immediately. and just get deeper into my deck. Cantrips are pretty good here. Just take this out of play. Yeah, that's fantastic. Fight attack with Stoneforge Mystic. Opponent takes the damage. So Teferi only stops you from casting spells at any time you could do a sorcery. All right, yeah, there's Urza's Saga. And that's something that my opponent can just like copy with Thespian Stage. So like that's not great either. Oh, fuck, I forgot about that line. Maybe I did need to swords this. Fuck, that's so bad. Oh, cool. My opponent's just killing Teferi. They didn't maze this to untap it. Okay, that could have gone a lot worse. So I think I need to just take out this creature so that my opponent does not assemble a 2020 Nightmare Machine. And then I think I pass the turn and start putting in equipment with Stoneforge Mystic. This is going to be a long game from hell. If my opponent has more lands, the Urza Saga tokens can get ward and start attacking immediately, but that's actually annoying. I am a Murktide Regent deck. And I guess technically I have that sort of blue and black. That's what it's called. Time and other time. I have literally no idea what that card is called. Batterskull gets in there. Oh, that's weird now. I, in theory, would really like to find a wasteland. I think despite the awkwardness of dropping access to Force of Will, that this is worth doing. That's not bad. Put back Kaldra Tundra, play Stoneforge, re-get Kaldra. I guess I can accomplish the same thing with Delta without losing a life. Yeah. Land drop. Stoneforge. Yes. Ward 2 is sort of interesting for Maze of Ith purposes. I think I'm just getting the Kaldra back, though. What, 1, 2... Yeah, I can attack with the Batterskull. It's not going to do any good. I guess I could put the Kaldra in and not hold up Assimilation Aegis and actually start doing some damage. Is that fine? I think that's fine. Let's make our germ friends. And then I don't maybe run into any weird spots with Stoneforge Mystic getting Pithing Needled while I hold up Assimilation Aegis. Okay, opponent is making another Maze of Ith. I thought we were going to end up going in the Infinite Urza Saga tokens direction. Sure. Let's see what my opponent goes and finds. Sure. Naming Teferi. I don't have one of those. Boots on token is fine. No attack. I'm not getting in for very much damage. I'm unsure if this is removal or a card to pitch to Force of Will. I think my Ponder's worth casting. Absolutely not. Ponder came back. Swords, pay, attack for 2 points of damage. Don't hold up, put in Assimilation Aegis. I'm just going to Ponder again. Cryptic Coat and Murktide Regent. These are reasonable cards. I'm fine with this, so let's get rid of that. I can remove this Construct token next turn. It doesn't have to happen right now. I'm going to draw Murktide Regent next turn. So I think I'm just going to attack with both of these, call it a turn. Have a decent amount of flexibility for options available. And this just kind of keeps my opponent from doing some weird crop rotation, float a bunch of mana, Yavimaya nonsense. So there is a Dark Depths. So my opponent can immediately make a 20/20 and attempt to give it haste. Yep. And guess what's already in the graveyard? Is this... Hold on, I'm just going to check, like, make sure there's no weird non-token clause on this. One target creature. Yeah, worth checking. Get rid of that 20/20. And I do so without giving my opponent a buttload of life, which is nice. So now we're just going to work on going wide of my opponent. I guess I always kind of need to be holding up Swords to Plowshares or I can potentially die. So let's just keep sending these in. I'm just going to always yield to Maze of Ith. I think Murktide Regent is actually my worst card in hand. So end of turn, we'll Stoneforge. Put something in with Cryptic Coat. And then I think I just will go ahead and bounce this back to my hand and keep doing this whole song and dance. I don't mind more land drops here. So now I just, like, what? Like, 2 mana, put in Cryptic Coat, 2 mana, bounce Cryptic Coat, 2 mana, put in Cryptic Coat. Seems good. Yep, no, we'll just hold Murktide Regent, Force of Will. We've got a Surveil land. Oh, they liked a card. It seems to me like that means it's an Urza Saga, or like a Life from the Loam or equivalent. So I think for tempo-based reasons, I just counter that with Force of Will here. Pitch this and go on. And I try to find like a Lion Sash next turn with some cantrips to help. So I will activate Stoneforge. I will put in a Cryptic Coat. Why am I choosing a player? Cloak the top card of your library. I have no idea why I'm choosing a player. I will click on myself. Oh fuck, I figured it out. Okay. Whoops. So now we're going to do kind of an old school trick here. We're going to activate Stoneforge Mystic, hold priority, bounce Cryptic Coat. Oh, I guess this one isn't returned as cost. It's not the same as Batterskull. Never mind, I'm not being cute. Oh, there's Lion Sash. Fuck yeah. That's so good. All right. How do I turn this face up? I just pay 2 mana, right? So, surprise, it's me, Lion Sash. I will take out Life from the Loam. That's no longer a problem. This creature also can't be blocked, which is real cool. So bam, bam, bam. That's fine. You can do all this stuff. All right, they junk Lion Sash. That means Batterskull's getting through. That also means that I don't need to funnel mana into Lion Sash immediately. Oh, sure, we're trading. Yeah, absolutely. That means all these little guys can start attacking. I'm not going to put another body onto the board. I have plenty of bodies. I now don't have a good defense versus, like, Tabernacle. Oh, never mind. I guess I just pay 1 billion mana. Okay, so I can't counter that, so that's happening. So my opponent can get their new 20/20, and then I will Swords it. It gives my opponent a bunch of life, but I should take away that life very quickly. Actually, can I just kill them from 14 immediately? No, not through double Maze of Ith. I guess it's single Maze of Ith now. Like, is my opponent just dead if they attack? Like, I can go to 2? This gets hit 2, 4, 9, 10, 11, plus 4, 15. Okay, is this deterministic? So I go to 2. I eat twice with Lion Sash. Lion Sash is a 4/4. Lion Sash will always be the biggest thing after that. No, I guess Kaldra. All right, so let's do this math with Kaldra getting junked. And I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Batterskull equip plus 1 more eat. The Lion Sash is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, my opponent is dead. This is only 21, so it's not lethal. Go to 1. We'll do some damage control. Let's count this one more time. Kaldra is ignored. Or I guess Batterskull on Stoneforge is ignored. That's the same thing. So 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14. Yeah, we're good. Send them. The Lion Sash gets junked, and my opponent is very dead. All right, well, that was a game from hell, but we came out on the right side of it. I think I also win that one if I just, like, don't do the math, Swords, and kill my opponent over 2 turns, but, you know, we just deterministically had it. So I think it seems like I'm pretty good against Merit Lage, so let's not die to Urza Saga Construct tokens. That probably involves Dress Down. It probably involves Force of Negation for Life from the Loam. We will play some other things that help me remove stuff. It feels like this is not going to be so much a counterspell matchup, and this is going to be more of a play to the board matchup. How is Sword of Once and Future versus Sword of Fire and Ice? This one is protection from the 20/20 token. This one lets me reuse Swords to Plowshares and other removal spells from the graveyard. This might be better than drawing a card and shocking. I'm sitting here thinking about, like, Flusters, Hurkles, Recalls, Surgical Extractions. Like, life from the Loam is in theory a problem. I am wondering if I actually need, like, Delver of Secrets, or if I can just, like, remove those from the deck and assume that, like, Batterskull, Cauldron, Murktide Regent, whatever, just kind of eventually win. I could also, like, just do this, not play that sword. Because, like, I'm going to fetch Lion Sash Cauldron, Cryptic Coat over that every time. I'm going to cut half of my Delvers to just play more Surgical Extractions. Even if it's not Life from the Loam, surgically extracting Urza Saga or a combo piece of the Dark Depths combo is, I think, still reasonable. This feels very clunky. Caldra's a dead card, Murktide's a dead card. This is not good until much later. This is probably not enough to make this a keepable 7-card hand. Alright. Pithing Needle resolves. That's not worth Force of Negationing when I can just bounce it out of play. Stoneforge Mystic is totally reasonable. Note that if it seems like I am very likely to lose this game, I will probably concede rather than play it out. I am down 5 minutes on clock. I'm going to remove this upkeep stop, in fact. Just not mess around with that if I don't have to. Let's say no to that. I think pitching Assimilation Aegis. That card gets a lot worse without Stoneforge Mystic to bounce it in and out of play. I'm going to go ahead and just make my land drop, pass the turn, and then hope to just start hitting my opponent with a True Name Nemesis. I'll respond. Let's figure out what the plan is. Shuffle and look for another land, probably. I'm going to get rid of Stoneforge Teferi, I think. Oh, wow. Is that all the lands you have? Oh, no, you're just going to play some stuff post-combat. That's fine. Sure. That's why we have Surgical. Let's get a basic Plains, despite some of the awkwardness of that with True Name Nemesis. And I'm just going to do this now. Pay the life. Elvish Reclaimer and Swords. Force of Vigor. Haywire Might. Spheres. Okay. Generally speaking, I've got it. I don't really have time to take a screenshot. Murktide's fine. I need another blue source. We'll get there eventually. I have white removal for the things that I care about. Game's going okay. There's about 8 cards my opponent can draw that I super care about. That's one of them, but I have multiple answers. There's a Reclaimer. All Swords to Plowshares. That. I'm just going to do it right now for the sake of time. Now my opponent still has 1 to activate Thespian Stage, but I have Path to Exile for that. Blue land would be sweet. Brazen Borrower also very good. You may have your 20/20. I'm going to take your 20/20 away and just have Brazen Borrower hanging out in exile. I now have 3 things that require triple blue pips, which is awkward. But my opponent's not doing an awful lot. That's a fantastic top deck, unfortunately. Blue land. Stoneforge. Not great. This is around. So I just want to get a castable card. I will pick up an Aegis. I'm going to assume that I get more mana. And I think Aegis keeping me from dying to Urza Saga Construct tokens matters quite a bit. That's not great. Batterskull, not the best. Yeah. I think for clock concerns, I'm just doing this and then F6ing through my opponent's turn. I have to decide pretty quickly whether or not I want to continue playing this game. The second Urza Saga is really rough. Like, that is a lot to grind through. I have cards that have a very high impact on the game that I can draw. Like Dress Down, that just answers all of this at once. Haywire Might, sure, that's perfectly reasonable. That's a legend-ruled Boseiju. If I get Brainstorm locked, I'm going to immediately concede. That's technically not Brainstorm locked, but I think this one is far enough gone that I'd rather save my clock for the next game. Like, I can surgically extract something out of my own graveyard to shuffle, but at that point my opponent has 2 more Urza Saga tokens and Lava Spur Boots to attack with. I think I have a better chance of just winning the next game. So I know about the Might now. I don't think anything's changing. Okay, I have an okay hand. I'm just going to keep it despite some of the awkwardness here. I might have to get a non-basic. So this is just Flooded Strand, pass. I might do a Scryland. I might end of turn Brainstorm. I'm probably doing a Scryland. Stable mana just matters a lot. Yeah, that's fine. Life from the Loam. I could hit Force of Negation here. I think this is going to be worth using the Brainstorm for. I can always shuffle with Stoneforge if things end up kind of bad. Right, I did not hit. We'll just put back 2 cards. I'll redraw one of them immediately. So Life from the Loam finding Wasteland would be really bad given my current mana situation. Stoneforge Mystic is kind of like an answer to Life from the Loam if you look at it funny. We'll get Lion Sash. Again, not the best mana-wise. Whole bunch of Maze of Ith. Okay, sure. That could have been worse, honestly. You can draw those cards. White mana, please. Negative. I will put a Lion Sash into play. I can't eat the Life from the Loam immediately. Note that I am doing it this way instead of holding up Stoneforge Mystic so I can F6 my opponent's turn. We are in an every second counts sort of situation. That's Wasteland. That's game over. Like, Wasteland on my Tundra just wins my opponent the game. Oh, they fucked up. Like, they are going to let me eat their Wasteland. Cool. Very happy with that development. So eat is just my turn. Attack for 1. Guess I could have attacked with Lion Sash too. I think I am now effectively ahead on clock. My opponent is going to waste a lot of time with Maze of Ith clicks as this game goes on. Force of Vigor, pitching Life from the Loam. You got it. I'm going to eat that Wasteland on the way out. And I guess I will eat the Forest too. But I am... maybe my opponent has a second Life from the Loam. That would make their play make sense. Exploration is fine. That doesn't do a lot here. This is fine. My opponent has a lot of ways to stop damage. They don't really have good ways to just win the game on their own. Excuse the laziness here. We are in F6 mode. We are just working. I guess maybe I need to play out Teferi to play around end of turn crop rotation. That was a mistake. All right, opponent is copying my Wasteland. Got it. Ooh. I've got a Path to Exile. That's not the end of the world. They're taking out my Wasteland. That's all fine. This is unblockable and has an annoying ward trigger for Maze of Ith purposes, so that's nice. Send in. Ward does ward stuff. Opponent does not pay, takes some damage. Does Maze of Ith again, pays this time. I guess I also have Assimilation Aegis for Dark Depths. Yep. So I guess I will Aegis right now. They don't have any sort of protection up. Yup. Get out 2020. And I think in this turn cycle, I actually start pulling ahead on time, which is cool. My opponent now has neither combo piece in play. Don't have Urza's Saga. What is this, Force of Vigor? Force of Vigor. Okay, I mean, I still have a 2/2 in play. I'm about to have a Cauldra that gets to attack as well. I think I am more interested in that than Teferi. Gotta get the show on the road. 2 points of damage at a time. I'm unsure what I do with this Flooded Strand. Meticulous Archive selection is reasonable. I maybe need multiple white mana. It's possible that this is supposed to be basic white. I think I'm just going to get a basic island though. Just have both of my colors if things go wrong. Cool. No Trixies. Opponent has Trixies. I'm going to go ahead and just Teferi plus for now. Crash in for 0. I can end up bouncing my own Cauldra and then putting it back into play with Stoneforge Mystic, and that's kind of a pain in the butt line. Teferi also just helps a lot versus some things like Urza's Saga, although I partially have that covered via Dress Down. It feels like I'm now in a pretty good position. Surgical Extraction is good. Let's bounce Cauldra, get deeper in my deck, try to hit some more land drops. Did not succeed. Activate Stoneforge. Put in Cauldra. Rumble. Once my opponent puts a combo piece in play, I maybe want to think about surgically extracting the other one, but I am very conveniently at 22 life right now, and I'm not in a rush to change my life total accordingly. That's annoying Urza's Saga timing with regards to the number that my Teferi is currently on. You got it. Plus this, so that I have an easier turn. Let's just activate this. Put in a Batter Skull. Call it a turn. I guess attack. Stress Down's pretty solid at clearing out both Urza Saga tokens. Cool, that's extra mana. I could keep my opponent from tutoring. Nah. I'm going to go ahead and just fetch here. Get more access to white mana. Going to go 1 and 2. Play a Stoneforge. Yes. Grab a Cryptic Coat. This is a 2/2. You can also just send in with both of these. No damage done. Bunch of clock taken off. My opponent can activate their Urza Saga. I am fine with all of this happening. My real goal here is to surgically extract Urza Saga and not have to grind through that. Because I have so many... that doesn't feel right. Because I just have so many outs to Merit Lage here. Or not even making. You can name like Stoneforge or whatever. Life from the Loam. Force of Negation. I'll pitch the Cryptic Coat. I want to extract Urza's Saga. Alright, those are covered. I guess I will just dress down. Just take this out of the way. Make it so all my things can attack in. And now basically, I think as long as I hold up mana, there's no problems. I'm going to just ponder now. I know that I can do it at instant speed. I'm fine taking a Delver. I'll fetch to clear those lands. Do something that helps me set up Delver. That's an above average draw. I'm just going to keep that. And now I swing in with all these creatures. I'm still making positive life damage here to my opponent. They time out before I do. They die to combat damage before I do. I don't think we can realistically lose this one now. No to Delver trigger. Plus Teferi. Play True Name. Target you. Combat. A billion D. How much is my opponent actually taking? 4. That's basically a billion D. Opponent has 20 seconds left on the clock. Your life from the loam resolves. You have a Thespian stage. You have 4 seconds remaining on your clock. Good game. So we end up positive in this league with a record of 3-2. Right, honestly, that wasn't so bad. I am overall pretty happy with this league. I think there's probably improvements that can be made to the deck. I think the first thing I want to do is cut the cute sword. I think we cut Sword of Once and Future. I don't think I need to justify that one. I think that was cute to start with. Assimilation Aegis overperformed. Tutorable, Stoneforge Mysticable, and thus uncounterable removal is kind of neat. It did a lot of work versus the Merit Lage decks in this league. Generally speaking, I give this a thumbs up. But I give it a thumbs up with a caveat that this deck was punishing as fuck, and I lost games for very, very small reasons. I don't think this deck is objectively all that powerful. From many years ago, there was this joke that Stoneblade is a deck that's 45% against the entire field, meaning that you're always in every game, but it's always an uphill battle. Like, if you play really well, I think a deck that looks something like this is perfectly fine. But I don't know that this is one of the things that is really pushing the power level of the format. I think if I were to play again, I would try to figure out whether or not Delver of Secrets is actually good in this deck. Like, it's possible that you want to lean into a slightly more controlling build than this and, like, remove Delver and maybe remove Daze for other interaction. We didn't run into a lot of situations where we really needed Prismatic Ending in this particular league, but against other matchups, maybe we do. I could see bumping the land count up by 1. There were definitely some times where I was just waiting on mana. Like, if this league goes a little differently and I have a little more mana, like maybe I end up actually equipping Assimilation Aegis. There was a time where I could turn something into a Ravenloft adventure. There was a time that I could turn something into a DRC. Like, I had options, and I had so much to do with my mana between like Cryptic Coat bounces, Batterskull equips, Batterskull bounces, all that sort of stuff that I could see wanting to have a little bit more mana. So overall, like, I give the deck a thumbs up. Plum Wizard, I think what you put together here is pretty reasonable. I think this is a great start for a post-ban deck list. I liked the changes that I made. I don't think I would have liked Solitude in this deck list. But I think you need either like a few more lands to help you do all this stuff, or you need some more stuff to do in the early game beyond what's here. It feels like this is close, but some of the numbers need to be adjusted. Like, there's a lot of just clunk that you can draw, and that's probably a downside of this deck, but overall, I enjoyed playing this quite a lot, although the matches did take a long time. This was definitely a grind. But should you need Cryptic Coats or Assimilation Aegis or anything else, check out toamagic.com, use promo code ThrabenU to let them know that I sent you. And folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!